Glasses, I can't find my glasses. Has anybody seen my glasses?
Please God, not today.
We are gathered here today with the purpose of uniting in matrimony George Esteban Garea, Benjamin Arthur Hull.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Your love, your dedication, your commitment to each other are an example to be followed.
Word got out to the Archdiocese. You've all known this whole time that Ben and I have been living together.
The decision is effective immediately.
Now, we invited you all here today because, well, you're family. With my private lessons and Ben's pension, we need a place to stay.
Why are we even talking about this? I'm the only one with the extra bedroom.
No, it's not about that, Mindy. It's a Poughkeepsie.
I didn't have a very productive day.
You know my favorite story of yours?
It's the neighbors again?
No, it's your uncle.
Which one is your favorite?
Well, they're only just now deciding to have dinner. Someone's just turned up with a bloody baby.
Uncle Ben?
My friend is here. We need to work on a school presentation, and there's nowhere else for us to.
Who?
That's so gay.
He doesn't mean homosexual, Uncle Ben. He just means stupid.
Hey, can I have some private time, please?
When you live with people, you know them better than you care to.
There was a famous sip-in right here in this bar.
Oh my God, you're that guy?
Yeah, it's one of the guys.
Wow. Well, this round's on me, fellas.
You are such a liar.
James MacDonald, Red Carpet Crash. And first of all, I want to say congratulations on the movie. I saw a screening of it on Monday. I knew nothing about it going in. My editor called me and said, hey, you want to go and check it out? I said, sure.
Right.
And I like going into movies sometimes not knowing anything.
Yeah.
Just let the film kind of explain everything. The one thing over the years, you hear a lot about what you might call a gay-themed movie.
Mm-hmm.
And after watching the movie, I never got that feeling from the movie. I mean, it was a story about two guys who cared and loved for each other who just happened to be gay.
Right.
But everything else, the events that took place around them, you know.
Well, I think none of us live in isolation. And also, we can't be defined by any one adjective. I feel like if you make a good film, it's about people.
Right.
And relationships in this case. And about, to me, this film is a multi-generational story about three different stories where you have this older couple, but you also have Marissa Tomei and her husband Darren Burroughs, who are in the middle of their life, and then you have this kid, Charlie Tahan, who's really learning about love for the first time.
Right.
It's all there.
I mean, the story could have happened. I mean, the two main characters could have been two women, or could have been a guy and a girl.
I think that's true, and I think it's false. I mean, I would say it's true because I think at the heart, how people interact are very universal. As a filmmaker, I try to get the details right, and everything is not the same.
Right.
Not every couple would be fired from their job for getting
Exactly.
married. So I think the details of the culture and is something that I want to make a film that actually represents this moment in time.
Right. Now, John Lithgow and Alfred Molina are considered to be amongst this generation's finest actors.
Yes.
They played good guys, bad guys, and they're good at either one.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a lot of actors that can achieve that. When you were writing the script, did you write the script with either or both of them in mind, or was that something that happened later?
No, I never write with certain actors in mind because you never know how it's going to turn out. When I finished the script, I cast Alfred Molina very quickly, and he was involved during the year that we put the film together. Lithgow came in towards the end of that process, and he and Alfred had known each other for probably 25 years. They both live in Los Angeles. They've both been in 30-year marriages with their wives. They're both, as you say, like leading thespians of their generation. So they had this history which they could use. What they didn't know is how close they'd become as friends during the course of making this movie. And that was to my great advantage.
Right, right. It shows they had great chemistry on screen as well.
They really, really do. And I think everyone who sees the films that I've spoken to really feels at the end that you know who Ben and George are, and that they're somehow part of your family.
That's right, that's right. You co-wrote the screenplay with, is it Mauricio Zacharias? What
Yes.
kind of a collaboration was that like?
Mauricio and I have written now 2 films together, Love is Strange, and previously we wrote Keep the Lights On, and we're working on our 3rd in a trilogy of New York stories now. And we are, he's also the godfather of my son, and we are family.
Right.
And we share a lot of feelings about the world and about people. We're curious in very similar ways, and all of those very human qualities are so important to a collaboration.
Right.
They make it deep, and
Yeah.
I hope then that translates to making the film deep. Mauricio's maybe he maybe has a better sense of humor than I do, and on some level, but he also has a lot of craft in terms of structuring the film in a way that I think has made our work together speak to an audience in a new way.
Right. Now, during the movie, I couldn't help notice most of the score was by Chopin.
Yes.
Was there a particular reason, or was it just it suited the film?
We had written into the film, there's a young girl, a piano prodigy, who plays a piece when Alfred Molina is giving her a piano lesson, and she's an 8-year-old Dovi Curran, and we wrote in that she would play a piece by Chopin.
Right.
When I started to edit the movie, I began to listen to a lot of Chopin. I realized I could make an entire score for the film out of that music. Similarly to how Simon and Garfunkel, for example, is used in The Graduate.
Right, right.
And I felt that Chopin could also be used somewhat similarly to how Gershwin is used in Manhattan, which was a film that was really important to us.
That was a shot in the movie where we're seeing the girl play, and the camera kind of slowly tracks over and we go down to seeing her play.
Yes.
A lot of the time you cut away to somebody else's hands, and I
Yeah.
was going to ask, was she a real piano player?
She was a real piano player.
Okay.
Yeah, and she was so good, and I liked her music so much that we actually used her piece earlier as part of the score from her own performance.
Cool. Well, one of the aspects about it that I absolutely loved was how you shot the movie. I'm kind of old school, grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and I like to watch movies, even action movies, where you can see everything going on within the frame. What do you think of that whole shaky cam style of film? I detest it, but curious what your style, because you shot the movie like a lot of, like Spielberg and Scorsese shot their movies in the 70s and the 80s, and still today to a degree.
Yeah, well, thank you for recognizing that the attention that I pay to the image. I worked with a wonderful cinematographer, Christos Voudouris, who he and I were very interested in creating a very intimate look on the film, but also a very beautiful one, because the film is a romantic film about New York, and we wanted to get that across. We played with using a handheld camera. I've never been one who was comfortable with it. We shot some stuff because it's a very kind of realistic film. I ended up using none of it because it's just not my voice.
Right, right. I'm glad you didn't, because that style of filmmaking, just Paul Greengrass with the Bourne movies, it's just headache inducing. So when I sat down and watched it, by the end of the movie, I'm like, wow, the camera didn't shake once. This is great.
Well, I'm very influenced by the European cinema of the 1950s and 60s, as well as American cinema, but a kind of very classic kind of storytelling, and the Japanese filmmaker Ozu was very important to us, and he only used a 35 millimeter lens, and he never moved the camera at all.
Right.
So and the stories are just so full of life.
Right.
But
I mean, the camera can sit there and you can still enjoy the movie because of the acting and the story.
Yes.
And you talked about shooting in New York. It became one of probably the most important character within the movie.
Yes.
And you can't turn or look anywhere without seeing or hearing it. Was New York always the intended setting, or had you ever at one point in the script thought maybe, well, we'll try someplace else?
It's a New York story. I mean, and I wanted to make a love letter to New York as someone who's raising a family there and who's lived there for so long, and just feel like it's still, like, to me, it's the most wonderful city in the world, and I wanted to include that. One of the things that we did, for example, in the poster, which you can see, is that's what we call it, our Midnight Cowboy shot, because we wanted to make an iconic film about the city, and you can see in these two men that that's their city. They own it.
Right.
And I think that is something that was fun to play with.
And are you working on any more? You said you were working on a third movie?
Yeah, I'm working on a third in a trilogy of films about New York and relationships there. And it's a film about two boys. It's a kids' film, actually.
Okay.
And it's about two boys who become best friends who, for various reasons, take an oath of silence. And they stop speaking to their families.
Right.
Which creates
So we
drama
have to see
and
the movie
tension.
to find out why
Exactly,
and everything.
Exactly,
Okay.
but it's another story about the city, about families, and also in this case about real estate again, which to me is such a dramatic element in New York lives and all our lives.
Right. That was one part of the movie when they were talking about trying to sell it and everything,
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, that's incredible.
Last night I was at a screening and a woman came up to me afterwards, and she told me, this was here in Dallas, she told me that she had just moved into a new apartment with her wife, but for the last few months they'd been living with her sister because she had been fired from her job from the Catholic Family Services.
Wow.
And she had no idea when she walked into the movie what it was about.
Right.
So you can imagine how shaken she was to see her
to see
story
it on screen.
on screen.
Okay. All right, well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.